Welcome to the HIT podcast, H.I.T, Human Resources, Insurance, and Technology. I'm your host, Toby Kennedy. As with every week, we are dropping into your feed on Tuesdays with what I hope are awesome, bite-sized, digestible content catered specifically for you, the human resources professional. This week's episode is brought to you by Montage Insurance Solutions, and we pick up live from the stage. We were the keynote speakers opening the general session from the main stage at the big CAHR conference put on by Pyra. Take a look at our three-part series and enjoy.
So transitioning, see that's an episode, right? Tight, in and out, right? 15, 20 minutes. Transitioning to a conversation about the present. When you hear about someone say that you've got to accommodate today's workforce, what type of initiatives specifically are you guys doing that match that expression? And I'll start with Jenn.
And can you say the expression again?
Yeah, I need to accommodate today's workforce, right? And today's workforce is maybe different than past, present, future, whatever. And what initiatives are we doing to accommodate today's workforce?
Yeah, I would say just even my tenure at Lionsgate, our workforce has literally changed every single year, whether it's with mergers, acquisitions, changes in the economy, environment. We always try to get feedback from employees, so whether it's surveys or focus groups and whatnot, to just see where their needs are. And we try to figure out how we can adapt there. So one of the things that we really are working on is that personalization.
Of soliciting feedback?
No, so personalization of benefits.
Okay.
So we know that the early careers coming into the company, they're still on their parents' insurance, right? Which is great, but at the same time, we know that they don't appreciate those benefits as much as someone else who is on it and has a family. So we try to think through, okay, well, from a total rewards perspective, what else are we giving this individual? Because back to what we talked about earlier, it's very transactional.
So it's not necessarily an effort to incentivize them to take these benefits, it's an acknowledgement that they're not gonna, so what can I round out with?
Yes, but also educating them. I think there's still an educational component because most people just don't want to think about it and they just want to stay on their parents' benefits. And it may be better or it may be better to go on ours, right? So that's one part of it. So we've created like more, I would say, employee profiles to help share what types of benefits we have for different demographics and different stages of life. And we partner with our ERGs to give that lens as well.
Your employee resource groups?
Employee resource groups. So whether it's the vets group, we have military leave that we just got approved, so we have that information there. And just really trying to tailor it to our employees of today.
Yeah, same question.
Yeah, it's a good question. So our workforce, at least today, currently is over 60% female.
Yeah.
So we've been able to, and we went self-insured 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And so we were able to create the bespoke plan, if you will, tailored to what I believe through surveys and other interactions, what our colleagues need internally. So we've been able to add benefits on top of sort of our major medical to address things like family planning to menopause coverage. Like actually that became like a huge positive thing for
our Carrot does a lot of that work in that space now.
I
work for
we
Carrot,
use Maven.
Yeah, right on.
So same
I did an episode on it. And we talked about telling people, kind of challenging them to update their language from infertility benefits to family building, right? Because it impacts a lot of our staff that aren't just experiencing infertility, they're going through family building.
Absolutely. And so that would be one example. Obviously mental health has been a big at the forefront, and being able to tailor our plans to make it more accessible and destigmatize it for our internal population so that folks are reaching out and getting the help that they need. So that's been really positive. We've also been able to add all different kinds of coverage for those that, adoption benefits, other things that we've been able to do based on sort of our demographic, what they want, what they need, where they are, and then create national plans that create sort of parity, right? Because we didn't have that in the past where you had all these regional plans that people would subscribed to, which was helpful, but then you'd have somebody in New York getting different benefits than somebody in Chicago versus wherever, and so leveling the playing field in that way. We've also been able to add things like, I don't know if you know Bright Plan, but Bright Plan is like a financial wellness tool, right? Yeah. So we think beyond sort of the general health and welfare, but to financial wellness as well.
100%.
Which is really important.
Yeah.
That's been huge. It's been a game changer for a bunch of our folks. So it helps on the education side too.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and you talked about a couple things that'll segue into a decent follow-up question, which is, so you talked about going self-insured, right? Mm-hmm. And so now when you're self-insured, the best way I can sort of describe it is you're not in the health insurance game, you're in the healthcare game, right? Mm-hmm. So now you're funding the claims, right? Yep. And you talk about point solution vendors that come in and kind of wrap around and help us with our claims. And you mentioned someone like Maven. And then you mentioned mental health. I'd be curious if you guys have heard, and again, not to plug individual companies, but someone like Rula, who is a mental health provider that is this really great technology platform and maps people with healthcare providers, and it makes it super easy, and they're in network with a ton of the carriers, but it happens over like FaceTime or over like a video. And so I'd be curious to hear your take on not only mental health going that direction, but in general, the access to care transitions to digital world versus the kind of in-person seeking of care, and whether or not you guys are doing much to promote that, or what you're doing to promote that. And maybe I can bounce to Jenn first and have her answer that.
Yeah, I'm a huge advocate for that. Yeah. During the pandemic, we partnered with Talkspace, which is a similar vendor, and that was huge because, I mean, at that time we were able to go, to the appointments, but we wanted to make sure it was accessible and convenient for our employees. And then we also use Teladoc. As a working mom, I've called Teladoc a million times, middle of the night, on the weekends. And it's just so helpful and convenient to talk to that pediatrician or family doctor. And if I need any prescriptions, they send them to my pharmacy. So I love it. I think it really helps meet our employees where they're at. I think the only two things I always make sure is, to do all the vetting of the vendor, right? Because we're talking about FaceTime. So making sure that all the security and data privacy and protection is in place. Yep. And then also making sure that they're actually offering something that meets the needs of our employees. Mm-hmm. So when we first launched Talkspace, it was unlimited texting with a dedicated therapist. And then we also had 4 30-minute video or audio sessions per month, which was great. So some people did the text messaging, some people did the actual...
Did you get reporting back on that?
We did, yeah.
Yeah, what was your adoption rate?
I'm trying to think of what the percentage was, because we rolled it out in 2011.
And the reason I ask, I feel like a lot of these solutions, the power of them is how can we message, how can we get out? Because if I've got this great tool out there and not enough of my employees understand why we think it's a great tool, perhaps they don't get utilized in the way we'd want. So I'd be curious to hear, not only your adoption rate, but kind of some tips and tricks on how you guys bumped that up.
Yeah, at first, it was slow. I think people weren't sure about it, but they also needed something quickly. So over time, kind of going to your point earlier, Kathy, about normalization. Mm-hmm. So we really tried to normalize mental health and make sure that people know where to get the resources, how to do it, when to get help. And also, we trained our supervisors or people leaders on recognizing different signs and being able to have that conversation with employees, just letting them know that they have these resources. Did you bring in a trainer?
Like literally brought a trainer in?
We did.
Wow.
We did.
Nice.
It was virtual.
Yeah.
But yes, we did like a mental health first aid training for our people leaders. Cool. So yeah, going back to that. So when we renewed the second year with Talkspace, they were trying to shift their model and just do the text messaging. And we knew that some of our employees really wanted the video. So just making sure that whatever product is really meets the needs of your employees.
Yeah. So Catherine, same question about not only certain aspects of care moving to virtual, how you guys feel about that, but specifically ways you might be promoting, right? Are we putting pages in the benefits booklet? Are we doing meetings about it?
So yes and yes. Essentially, we also use like a telemedicine. We do a lot to promote that internally. Just so happens, you mentioned DRGs. I'm the executive sponsor for a CRG, we call it CRGs, Colleague Resource Groups, but affinity group called Trinet Lighthouse, and it focuses on mental health and awareness. Great. And so because it's colleague-led, what's really amazing about it is that they actually they volunteer to help get messages out, and so they offer sessions all the time to help bring the conversation live. And then we, as other folks, like the benefits group, if you will come in and we'll actually do demonstrations and talk through all the benefits that we have.
And do you guys get reporting on this?
We do. Yeah, we do. And so what we do is we don't use Talkspace or yes, but I know them very well. What we've done is we've negotiated with our carrier to get a certain number of free sessions and ensure that there's availability, and then we'll help actually to petition the carriers to get new providers in, because everybody knows, or at least I don't know, in my world, it's really hard to find a provider. It's hard to find the right match. It's hard to get their availability. Sometimes you got to wait months, and so we've created standards where you have to be able to get the resources you need quickly, and hopefully it works, and then we measure sort of that how that's going and get real-time feedback. But we do tons of things on, we have I think everybody does, probably an intranet page, right, where we tell stories also, so colleagues volunteer to kind of say, hey, this is what's been happening in my world, this is the experience that I had. They don't go into detail to share privileged information, but they'll talk about the actual process, right, and to get, which is great. And then we do closed sessions where they're not recorded, they're private. You kind of sign, you don't sign waivers, but like we do disclaimers that way you can really talk about stuff you're going through to really help destigmatize it, which is really, it's been game changing. We just won an award for, oh my gosh, what's the award we won? We just won an award for essentially mental health in our organization, because colleagues are they're going at the extra mile to really help bring it all together. And because of so what I think is also interesting about the mental health space, so not just in person, but the online piece, because that pivot during COVID was massively helpful, where providers could also, I think there was an opportunity for them to not be in the same state, where normally you have to be in the same state. So I wish they would bring that back, because I think with everybody being just so distributed and moving, that would be amazing. But I know that there's legal rules around that,
So we're talking a little bit about the stuff that you guys are doing today. What I think great HR practitioners bring to the table is discernment, right? You can't get shiny object syndrome, right? Can't go chasing after everything that's out there. I'd be curious to hear your 2 cents on something that's out there today that you're aware of. Maybe you kicked the tires on it, maybe you evaluated it and you thought, I don't think that's for us, actually. Jenn.
Good question.
Doesn't have to be a vendor, about policy.
I mean, there's definitely a couple things on my wish list that it's not right now because of a cost. I think that's a big one. So lifestyle spending accounts.
LSAs.
Those are really interesting. And going back to that early career,
real quick, lifestyle spending accounts that you can set aside for your employees, where you get to kind of dictate sort of what the money goes to. Maybe it's a new set of tires or a gym or whatever. They fit in that suite sort of like FSAs and DC FSAs and those sorts of things. Cool. So you're kicking the tires on that.
Okay. We keep doing it, because I think it really helps that entry level, that the ones that aren't on our medical plan, that we want to incentivize to come in.
What would you want the lifestyle account to be designated for?
For us, we've always looked at it from a wellness perspective, but we've taken, the very holistic wellness approach. So whether it's a gym membership or we've even discussed, maybe using it for a vacation, because that allows you to go maybe travel someplace you've never been, which is great, or allows you relaxation. So we've talked a lot of different things around it, but I think mostly it's like the wellness focus. And then the other one is student loan repayment.
Yep.
That one's still on my list, just trying to figure out how to financially do that one. But that also helps because we know employees are coming in, starting their career with tons of student loan debt, and just how do we bridge that gap and help them?
Would you, when done right, put that over a 10-year period, a 5-year period? I mean, do you want to leverage that to some retention?
That's how we've discussed it, exactly.
Okay, cool. Can you maybe bring us home in this segment with the same question?
Sure. So I agree definitely with student loan repayments. It's been on my list for probably the last 3 years, 4 years maybe. And I think it's actually, the benefit has evolved and gotten better, so that's amazing. So sometimes good things come to those who wait. So that's definitely on my list. The other thing that I think is on our list right now is there a need to augment with other things like, so if one of our top 5 issues is muscular, skeletal type issues, there are now small groups that are, or companies that are very specifically in trying to help aid and get in an early intervention so that you can avoid surgeries and other things. And I think it's really amazing. They've got proven track record. So there's more work to be done, but I think it's like I think that aspect of health coverage where you can augment and again tailor the needs to your population is really interesting.
Totally agree. I would describe that again as those kind of point solution vendors where you look to see, and maybe just unpack that a little bit because I think it's a great nugget that we've got on. I'm actually the chair of the Arthritis Foundation's big Jingle Bell Run coming up this year. And one of the folks that we work with is an organization called Pogo, and they do a great job, and there's several in the space. So again, I'm just shouting out names because we've come across them, and these happen to be phenomenal people. But the idea is, if I need a spinal surgery or a back surgery, especially in a world where I'm funding the claims, we could still get into why it's important on the fully insured side, for sure, but particularly where I'm funding the claims, the cost of that surgery is very, very high. So if I could have intervened earlier with some PT, physical therapy, or maybe other types of interventions that could have prevented, that's helpful to us, right? That's a dollar saved. So what you do is you find these sorts of vendors that fit and that you can look at your claims and your claims experience and that plug in to say, hey, look, X% of these conditions are turning into this bigger claim. We have this service that tamps that down a little bit, and you should look into us, right?
They pay for themselves, supposedly.
But again, right, so shiny object syndrome, and the reason you say supposedly is because I was a political science major, and the joke is you torture numbers long enough, they'll tell you anything you want to hear, right? People can cut up data however they want to show you that they've got 3X and 5X and 10X return on investment. But I think that's where, again, A, a good consultant, but B, a good HR practitioner's discernment comes into play, to where you kind of looking to see, this is a problem for us, and this is an actual solution. So thank you guys for that.
That's all the time we have for you this week on the HIT Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us for our 3-part series live from the stage at the big CAHR conference. This week's episode was brought to you by Montage Insurance Solutions and TrueHue. And we thank you guys for joining us this week. Join us this week, join us next week, join us every week. And until next week, make this the best week yet.
There seems to be a